Hello and welcome to the program UFO Warning. In this episode, we're talking about Nuforc UFO reports from New Mexico. That's correct, Nuforc UFO reports from New Mexico. As the name implies, I found these over at nuforc.org. Really cool site. Highly recommend you support those guys. This first sighting happened on February 22nd, 2026 at 7:25 p.m. local time. Says the duration was about 5 seconds. Observers, two military aviation expert. A location, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Shape orb, color red-orange. Estimated size unknown. The dots within the cloud appeared pinhead size. Viewed from land. Direction from viewer, east-southeast. Angle of elevation 78 degrees. Heading south to north, then west to east after turning. Closest distance unknown. The mountains are approximately 4.5 miles away. Speed variable, matched the apparent speed of satellites viewed from the ground. Characteristics, lights on object made a sound. Aircraft nearby. Bright red-orange orbs flying in a fanned-out formation, rapidly moving and changing direction. I was talking with my neighbor while looking east into the night sky above the mountains. I noticed what I originally assumed was space debris, approximately 100 or more bright red-orange orbs traveling literally from south to north in a fan-shaped cloud, moving incredibly fast. I pointed it out and my neighbor excitedly confirmed that he saw it as well. Immediately after I pointed it out, the entire cloud suddenly turned 90 degrees and began heading east, while accelerating to even greater speeds. The bright red-orange color remained consistent, but the fan-shaped cloud morphed and folded in on itself, showing variations in altitude among the cluster of dots. As the cloud continued eastward, the dots progressively reformed into the fan-shaped cloud again. As I wondered whether I had just witnessed a drone swarm, the cloud moved over the mountains, continuing east, and its altitude became apparent for the first time as the cloud disappeared behind the mountains. At that moment, I knew it was not a drone swarm from an entertainment event. One strange detail was the sound. There was a bizarre whistling noise, similar to Hollywood wind sound effects. I could not determine its source, but it seemed to come from the east. That is weird. Says background, I am a Marine Corps veteran who worked in aviation at Camp Pendleton and occasionally Yuma. I am also a professional UAS pilot and FPV racing drone pilot. I am extremely familiar with UAS operations, including both slow and fast-moving drones, as well as military aviation operations. I am not sure my neighbor's background since he recently moved here. Well, I don't think what this fellow saw was drones. I can definitely assure you of that. This sighting dated December 14th, 2025, 12:48 a.m. local time. Duration 4 seconds. Observers 1. Location Albuquerque, New Mexico. Shape rectangle. Color dark gray/black. Estimated size uncertain. Comparable in length to a car or SUV. Viewed from land. Direction north. Angle of elevation 75 degrees heading south. Closest distance approximately 100 to 150 feet above the ground. Estimated speed, slow to moderate speed. So we're talking about a fairly close encounter here. Gliding or flying UFO passed above me while watching asteroids. While standing outside my apartment building at night, I was observing the sky and looking for asteroids. Shortly after noticing what appeared to be an asteroid, I think they mean meteor or meteorite, I observed a separate object enter my field of view from the north and travel smoothly toward the south. The object was completely silent and moved at a steady, controlled pace. It appeared to be flying very low at an estimated altitude comparable to approximately 3 apartment building heights, or about 3 stories tall multiplied by 3. Because it was directly above me, it felt unusually close compared to a typical aircraft. Its movement was extremely smooth, with no visible propulsion, blinking lights, or sound, which initially made me question whether my eyes were deceiving me. From my perspective, looking upward, the underside of the object was visible. I observed what appeared to be 2 round spherical shapes on the bottom of the craft. The overall shape appeared more rectangular and it looked solid and distinct against the night sky. The object maintained a consistent trajectory and speed as it continued southward until it was no longer visible. The background included the dark night sky and nearby apartment buildings. There were no environmental factors such as wind, noise, or weather conditions that would explain the object's movement. The experience stood out because of the object's silence, low altitude, and unusually smooth flight. Yeah, I guess you're just out there looking for shooting stars and look up and see this SUV-sized craft floating over the neighborhood. Definitely would get my attention. This sighting happened on November 28th, 2025, 6:07 p.m. local time. Duration approximately 10 minutes. Observers 1. Location Albuquerque, New Mexico. Details: I was across town from the airport, but I saw the UFO flying straight up from the airport area. Shape triangle, color black, size approximately 90 feet. Viewed from land, direction from viewer southeast, angle of elevation 90 degrees, heading northwest. Closest distance approximately 1,000 feet. Speed approximately 115 to 230 miles per hour. Characteristics: lights on object. Large triangular object rises vertically from airport area before flying northwest. I was driving home after eating at a restaurant when I stopped at a red light. I looked to my right and could distantly see the airport, and then I noticed the object. It was flying straight upward. It stopped at approximately 1,000 to 2,000 feet in altitude and then began flying northwest directly overhead. The object was not emitting any noise, and it was moving very slowly. It appeared darker than the night sky and had 2 white lights on the bottom and a red light at the tip. The lights were blinking in a very orderly pattern. The traffic light turned green, so I had to continue driving, but when I glanced at the object again, it appeared to be stationary in midair. Then it suddenly started moving again, this time much faster, before flying out of sight. That is wild. I mean, I'm just thinking about this person sitting there at the stoplight, looking over and seeing this hovering triangle about 1,000 to 2,000 feet up in the air, just hanging out there. And as they drive away, then after hanging out, hovering for a while, it just takes off and blasts out of sight. The fact that it has lights on it also tells me that it's not too worried about being seen, even though the craft itself is described as being darker than the surrounding sky. This sighting is dated September 22nd, 2025, 7 p.m. local time. Duration approximately 10 minutes. Observers 2. Location Arroyo Hondo, New Mexico. Details: object visible in the southern sky around sunset, approximately 45 degrees above the southern horizon. Shaped disc, color white. Estimated size approximately the width of a pencil when viewed at arm's length. Viewed from land, direction from viewer approximately 194 degrees south, angle of elevation 45 degrees, heading stationary, closest distance very high in the atmosphere, estimated speed stationary, possible explanation balloon. Okay. White disk in the southern Santa Fe sky, larger than any star or planet and not the moon. On September 22nd, 2025, approximately 7 p.m. around sunset, southern sky at about 45 degrees above the Santa Fe horizon. Just after sunset, I noticed a bright light in the sky. My first thought was that it was the bright star Sirius, but the location did not seem correct. It was the only visible white object in the sky just after sunset before any stars became visible. This was the first thing that seemed unusual. It also appeared more like a disk than a dot, which is how Venus, Jupiter, Sirius would normally appear. I looked at the object with binoculars, and it appeared more like a disk than a bright dot, but because of the shaking of the binoculars, I could not make out additional detail. I then used much larger binoculars, Celestron Skymaster Pro binoculars with 20 by 80 magnification. With those, I was able to see more clearly that the shape was not round, but more like a disk or spiral galaxy. There appeared to be a pattern within the disk. It was not uniformly white. However, because of image shaking at that magnification and without a tripod, I still could not make out finer details. The object did not appear to move. I checked on it several times, though not continuously, and after about 10 minutes, I could no longer locate it in the sky. Unfortunately, I was not observing it continuously. I went outside 4 separate times to observe it, and the final time I checked, it was gone. Well, it doesn't sound like a planet then. As the sky darkened around 7:20 p.m., the regular stars became visible. I could then tell I had been looking in the direction of the constellation Scorpio and Sagittarius, but the larger, bright disc-shaped object had disappeared. I do not believe I was observing Saturn or Saturn's rings. I was unable to check a star map application to determine whether Saturn was in that area of the sky, but because the object disappeared after about 10 minutes, I was puzzled as to why a reflective object would no longer be visible. Any reflective object should still have been visible and not simply disappeared. Once the stars and planets became visible, they were obviously much smaller, dimmer, and round in appearance. The object I observed was clearly disc-shaped, larger than all visible stars or planets, and much brighter. It was not uniformly white or bright, but contained darker patterns. It also did not twinkle like stars. It appeared much larger than any planet. My wife also observed the object through the large binoculars and confirmed that it looked unusual and appeared as a very bright white disk. Could the object have been a weather balloon? A weather balloon would reflect sunlight until direct sunlight was no longer shining on it. The object did not appear to move during the approximately 10 minutes I observed it, and it seemed closer than a planet. My wife and I are both retired educators and frequently observe the night sky. We have used telescopes and powerful binoculars many times to observe planets and other celestial objects. Well, it doesn't sound like a balloon to me. I mean, why would it be hovering there for 10 minutes if it was a balloon? This sighting is dated September 4th, 2025, 9:53 a.m. local time. Duration approximately 45 minutes. Observers 5, including a pilot. Location Roswell, New Mexico. Location details: very high altitude, possibly around 60,000 feet. Then it gives the coordinates. Now, they do have some photographs here. Definitely something going on. Shaped cigar, color white, estimated size approximately 200 feet tall, viewed from aircraft, approximately 300 degrees magnetic, angle of elevation 20 degrees, heading stationary, closest distance approximately 20 nautical miles, so it says about 23 miles, possible explanation balloon. Yeah, I'm looking at it, I don't know, man. Vertical white tic-tac, quote unquote, hovering at very high altitude northeast of Roswell, remained visible for approximately 45 minutes. I mean, really? I mean, would a balloon just be hanging out there for 45 minutes? As a captain of a private jet, I was transporting 4 passengers from Carlsbad, New Mexico to Kansas City, Missouri. Immediately after leaving off at 41,000 feet, a passenger alerted me to an object hovering adjacent to our left wing. Now, I got to be thinking this jet airplane's going, what, 400 or 500 mile an hour? Do you really think a balloon's going to be hovering off the left wing? To me, the object appeared distant, perhaps 20 miles or more away, and much higher in altitude. Upon closer inspection, it appeared cylindrical and vertical, resembling a white tic-tac. I am familiar with the appearance of other aircraft, and this object appeared considerably larger and unlike any conventional aircraft. I contacted air traffic control to ask whether it might have been a weather balloon, but they indicated that it was not. Well, there you go. Typically, airspace restrictions are issued for weather balloons, and none had been indicated that day. The object appeared to keep pace with us for some time. Initially, I considered whether it might have been a satellite, a planet, or another aircraft. However, the object remained off our left wing for approximately 30 to 45 minutes before it finally disappeared from sight as it became more difficult to see behind us. All 4 passengers witnessed the event. And then it has a planned route here. It has the I guess, air traffic control initials. This is KCNM to VAADR to NOSCW to ANY to EMP to JHawk 8 to KMKC. Aircraft type Pilotus PC-24. Flight level 410, which is 41,000 feet. Wow, that's pretty wild, man. I mean, it looks to me like they're bringing their receipts there. That is a fact. Very cool sighting. I love these pilot sightings. I mean, I think these are some of the most reliable sightings you could ever come across. This sighting happened on May 12th, 2024, 8:10 p.m. local time. Duration 30 to 45 seconds. Observers 1, aviation expert. Location White Rock. Location details facing directly west while standing in the road. Shape rectangle, color black. Estimated size at least 1/4 mile long. Almost warehouse sized. Viewed from land. Direction from viewer west. Angle of elevation 56 degrees. Heading west. Closest distance approximately 30,000 feet. Question mark. Estimated speed around Mach 1, possibly faster. Black rectangular craft with red lights breaks the sound barrier with no sound. While visiting my brother, we decided it would be fun to rent a telescope from the local library, since I had not seen the stars clearly in about a year because of light pollution. Being in New Mexico meant we did not have to be close to a city. We set the telescope up on the bed of his truck and started aiming and focusing it on the moon. We took turns viewing the moon, and while my brother was looking through the telescope, I was also looking up at the sky as more stars became visible. At the very top of my field of vision, I noticed a red streak shoot through the sky and suddenly stop. The speed at which it moved and then stopped could only be compared to an MLB pitch freezing in midair. As soon as that happened, I asked my brother, "What is that?" At that point, my brother looked away from the telescope and up toward where I was pointing, asking what I had seen. I told him, "See that red light? It just came into view and stopped." As I finished the sentence, we started to make out its shape. A plain black rectangle that appeared massive from the distance we were observing it. Just as we were beginning to process what we were seeing, more lights started turning on across the craft. I would say the lights illuminated from back to front relative to the direction the craft had been moving. There were only 3 lights, all red. They turned on in sequence over a very short period of time. The rearmost light was already illuminated, followed by the second, then the third. As soon as the third light came on, the craft instantly shot away. We both watched it fly directly west before disappearing into distant clouds. Background: I grew up watching A-10 aircraft fly over the cornfields east of Dayton. I currently work as a robotics field service technician. My brother is a researcher for the Department of Energy near White Rock. Well, obviously a couple guys that probably can tell the difference between a weather balloon and a UFO. I mean, how cool could that be? Just looking up, seeing this giant triangle fly over. First you see the one red light, and then he describes this thing as a major league pitcher just throwing the baseball, and the baseball stops in mid-flight and hovers there. And that's kind of the feeling he got when he saw this craft. It's just flying along super fast, boom, stops. And then the second red light comes on, and then the third red light comes on, and then it just skedaddles out of there. What a cool sighting. This sighting happened on March 28th, 2024 at 11 p.m. local time. Duration 30 minutes. Number of observers 1 military. Location Crown Point. Location details Chaco Cultural National Historic Park Campground. Shape triangle, color black. Size 20 to 30 feet in diameter, viewed from land. Direction from viewer not sure. Angle of elevation 85 degrees across some mesa tops. That's the heading. Closest distance 250 feet. Estimated speed hovering to faster than the eye could see. Characteristics: lights on object changed color. Sighting of several objects, including a triangle-shaped object that flew overhead. I was camping for the night at the campground in Chaco Culture National Historic Park. I was sitting in a chair behind my camper van, looking up at the brilliant night sky. It was a very clear night, and the stars looked amazing. I observed what appeared to be a chain of white and red orbs hovering above a nearby mesa, approximately 1/4 to 1/2 mile away. The campground is located in a valley surrounded by various mesas. I watched the orbs descend from the sky, hover across the mesa for several seconds, and then ascend back into the sky, creating a chain-like appearance. After observing this phenomena for several minutes, A dark triangle with flashing red and white lights at each corner approached from directly behind where I was sitting. It stopped and hovered directly over my location for several minutes. I would estimate its altitude at approximately 300 feet. Its approximate size was 25 to 30 feet in diameter. It was completely silent. After what seemed like 3 to 5 minutes, it suddenly took off and disappeared. So this thing's just hovering above this individual for 5 minutes, a couple 300 feet up. Wow. About 15 to 20 minutes later, I saw another object of similar size slowly cruise past my location again, almost as if to say, "We know you can see us." This object was a different shape. It was bulbous and reminded me of the shape of a Kong brand dog chew toy. After several minutes, it slowly departed and ascended into the sky. I lost sight of it after several more minutes. At that point, I was somewhat frightened, so I went back into my van to try to sleep it off. I woke up at approximately 3 a.m. and decided to go back outside to see if I could observe anything else. I then saw red and white orbs traveling slowly in a triangle formation, hovering above a different mesa about a quarter mile away from my camping location. I was still somewhat frightened after seeing them again, so I decided to retreat back into the van and try to sleep it off. Can't really blame a guy for that. I mean, that's a pretty close encounter. I mean, you're sitting out there in your lawn chair, this remote camping site. You look up and you see this, not one but two UFOs cruising overhead a couple hundred feet, just hanging out there. We'll do 3 more here and wrap this up. This sighting's dated August 14th, 2023, 8:55 p.m. local time. Duration 15 to 20 seconds. Observers 1 military. Location Teos Canyon. Location heading north from Teos Canyon toward Teos between the Penasco turnoff and the horseshoe. Shape other. An object shaped like a vertical dorsal fin, approximately 60 feet tall, moving extremely fast with a bright blue flame trailing behind it. I was driving north through Teos Canyon. I was timing the drive from one end of the canyon to the other, so I was very aware of the time. I entered the canyon at 8:38 p.m. Just beyond the Penasco turnoff to the east, about 15 minutes into the drive through the canyon, I saw an object that at first glance looked like something on fire about to crash. It was shaped like a vertical fin and appeared to be about 60 feet tall from top to bottom. It had an extremely bright blue flame shooting out from the rear. The flame was consistent, and even from the top rear of the object to the bottom, it barely cleared the hill to the west of my truck. The object's trajectory was at approximately a 45-degree downward angle. The blue flame was so bright that it was somewhat frightening. It was traveling at an extremely high rate of speed based on how quickly it came into view and from the east side of the highway and crossed to the west side before disappearing behind the hills. I immediately slowed down to a crawl because I was certain I was about to witness a huge explosion. Given the object's trajectory and speed, I was sure it would crash within seconds. I waited for a bright flash or explosion, but nothing happened. That was when I realized the object had made no sound at all. After it passed beyond the hills on the west side of the highway, it simply disappeared. There was no sign of it whatsoever. I drove a little further up the road to see around the hills, and when I had a clear view, approximately 1 minute later, there was still nothing there. It was so clear, fast, bright, and mind-boggling that I cannot compare it to anything I have ever seen. I worked on the airfield at Joint Base Ballard, and I have seen many types of aircraft, both day and night, but I have never seen anything like this in my life. At 9:50 p.m., I called the New Mexico State Police to see if anyone else had reported the sighting, but they hung up on me. So helpful. Yep, called to report a sighting, but they hung up. Well, I guess that really doesn't surprise me, but anyway, so happy to have a resource like Nuforc where we can report these things and at least be aware of what's going on. Okay, 2 more. This sighting is dated July 18th, 2023, 9:15 p.m. local time. Duration 10 seconds. Observers 1. Location Farmington, New Mexico. Location details. Farmington is located in northwestern New Mexico. New Mexico is located in the southwestern United States. shape other characteristics, lights on object or haze around object. Animals reacted. I saw a UFO during the summer, a brief UFO visit, it says. My name is PJ. I live in Farmington with my dog. On July 18th, 2023, we experienced a visit, quote unquote, from something completely unfamiliar to me, something we had never seen before, something apparently not of this world. The day passed like any other until around 9:15 p.m. It was late dusk, and my dog was outside sleeping by the front door while I was inside puttering around. Suddenly, the dog, who hardly ever barks, began furiously barking and snarling. My first thought was that he was being attacked by a rabid animal or something similar. I opened the door to see what was happening. The dog was looking skyward, snarling, barking, and snapping at the air. Then I saw it. There in the sky in front of me, just a few hundred feet away, was some kind of a metallic craft or vessel with bright lights on it, silently floating by. It was moving approximately 15 miles per hour, heading east, about 200 feet off the ground. It had no motor or propeller and no visible means of propulsion. Its design was ladder-like in appearance, not like an A-frame ladder, but more like a ladder with parallel sides. I could see that the surface of the craft appeared to be made of brushed stainless steel. There were square and rectangular lights mounted on the sides and at the corners of each opening between the rungs, and there appeared to be approximately 30 of these rungs. At the front, or leading into the object, the two parallel sides came together and formed a point, though it was offset to one side rather than centered. Mounted at this offset point was a round or oval-shaped light, considerably larger and brighter than the others. The object appeared to be approximately 100 to 200 feet long and perhaps 12 to 15 feet wide. I grabbed my cell phone and began preparing the camera to record a video. When I looked up again, it was gone. It had simply vanished, disappeared completely. One thing worth mentioning is that my dog was not looking directly at the airborne object, but rather in another direction, as though something else had been there and had obviously entered his personal space. Although I was unable to photograph the object, I am fortunately an artist and can provide an illustration showing exactly what it looked like and exactly what I saw that night. And then it has an illustration here. It's pretty impressive. Note, I am a 61-year-old college graduate and veteran, not someone who invents stories. This report is truthful and based on actual events, exactly as it happens, so help me God. I feel compelled to make this report as a civic duty to inform the public in case there is danger or peril awaiting us in the near future. I do not want anyone saying I should have said something. Well, I saw something, so I am saying something. Just hope people are listening. I hear you, brother. Just a man and his dog out there in the desert. One of these things flies over. I really like the dog's reaction to this thing. We see this a lot. I don't know. I think dogs can sense danger. They can sense strangeness. A lot of times I think they're aware of this stuff before we are. We'll finish up with one last one here. This sighting happened on July 16th, 2023 at 10 p.m. local time, duration 3 to 5 minutes, location Folsom, location details U.S. Highway 64 west between Folsom and Capullin, shape rectangle, characteristics lights on object, massive rectangular UFO/UAP like a flying skyscraper passed over our car and vanished. It was unlike anything I could imagine. We were driving west on U.S. Highway 64 from Folsom toward Capullin, where the skies are classified as Bortle 1, B-O-R-T-L-E 1. It was near the time of the new moon, making the night sky exceptionally dark. I noticed a fuzzy, finger-like object in the sky northwest of us that clearly was not supposed to be there. I pointed it out to my mother, who was driving. As it got closer, I initially thought it was a Starlink satellite train and even said so to my mother. However, it kept getting closer and closer until it was almost directly in front of us in the sky. It was a huge rectangular object standing vertically like a building. It had red lights running down the middle. The body appeared to be green with rectangular sections on either side of the red lights that were also a similar shade of green. Along the sides between the rectangular sections and at both the base and the tip of the object, there were small yellow lights. I was in such shock, with even a brief flicker of fear, that I could not take my eyes off it long enough to properly photograph or record video with my phone. The encounter happened so quickly, and at first I truly believed it was Starlink. As it passed directly over our car, I looked up through the sunroof, and to my surprise, the object was now lying flat, parallel to the ground. It was rapidly vanishing from front to back, almost as if it were cloaking itself. It made no sound and showed no visible signs of propulsion or anything pushing or pulling it through the sky. I've also included a screenshot from another report on this sighting describing an incident that occurred the same night, within minutes of when I first saw the object. An 11-year-old girl drew a picture that I swear depicts the same thing I witnessed. It almost resembled something from the Transformers movie or cartoons, but different. In her drawing, you can see the red lights in the middle, the green body with the rectangular sections, and even the ends where the yellow lights appeared. The report also stated that the object vanished, and the drawing showed it in the same position I observed it when it disappeared. I also included my original photograph from when I first saw the object, along with a zoomed-in version where you can begin to make out the red lights in the center. I have believed I may have seen a UFO or UAPs before in my life, but this experience was an entirely different level, something I simply cannot explain. Yeah, well, when you got something the size of a skyscraper flying over your car, that's beyond explanation, that is for sure. Man, a lot of cool sightings there in New Mexico. As always, very grateful to Nuforc for posting those. If you like the program, don't forget to hit like, follow, subscribe. It doesn't cost a dime, and it really does help the algorithm. Until next time, this is UFO Warning. Over and out.